1999 in the country of Indonesia. This was a dark, semi-suburban area where not much vehicle or pedestrian traffic exists. A taxicab driver made a deadly decision which was to jovially antagonize a paying customer. After several minutes of driving, he began to make fun of the passenger's skin color. He eventually transitioned to mocking the stranger's Asian facial features. The driver then intentionally spoke louder as if his intention was to further annoy this stranger. At some point, the annoyed passenger calmly requested that the driver pull over to exit the vehicle. The driver now attempted to defuse the situation, but the stranger was unwilling to acknowledge or speak with the driver at that point. Now confused, the driver did as he instructed and pulled the vehicle over. Let's find out together how so many people from different walks of life vanished without a trace that were strangely interconnected in an area where it was statistically impossible to happen. This channel is about lesser known serial killers. If you're interested, I upload new content every Tuesday and Thursday. Well, if you're ready, let's get started. Now back to the story. The following morning, another taxicab driver passed by and observed the taxi on the side of the road. The vehicle looked occupied, so no real thought was given, and he drove past it. When that same driver returned, now heading in the opposite direction, he pulled over to see if there was a problem. After taking a closer look, it was the driver from the previous evening. He was found deceased with 4 bullet holes in his face. The local authorities were inexperienced with homicide cases. Fortunately, the police would learn quickly because the following murders would leave them all scratching their heads in the end. A year later, a 27-year-old local college student by the name of Yeni happened to run into a major serious problem. Yeni had a boyfriend at the time. They dated for a while and eventually became pregnant together. The boyfriend and Yeni had several discussions about their future together, but the boyfriend was not interested in having a child at the moment. The boyfriend did not want to break up with her, and he did profess his love for their relationship. The relationship was excessively good to that point. This was until she began to be pressured by her family to not have an abortion and to marry the father of the child. That pressure was then redirected towards the boyfriend via Yeni. After having numerous discussions over the course of several weeks, they eventually agreed to marry. The boyfriend, now a proud fiancé and father of the child, wanted to surprise Yeni with a wedding ring. The boyfriend quickly set up the arrangement along with the place and time for the romantic engagement rendezvous. He then waited for her arrival. Several hours passed and she did not show up for her engagement. The boyfriend reached out to her family and friends, but no one saw or heard of her since earlier that morning. Now concerned, the boyfriend notified the authorities. After an intense search, the pregnant woman, who looked forward to being married to her child's father, disappeared without a trace and was never seen alive again. The police believed that possibly sex traffickers had abducted her and the boyfriend was not implicated. Fast forward to 2 years later. One day, a man operating his vehicle took his attention away from the road for a moment. At that same moment, a husband and wife were crossing the street when the husband was hit and then completely ran over by a speeding vehicle. The driver immediately jumped out of the car and attempted to render assistance to the injured man, but he had already died on impact. The stranger, now feeling extremely remorseful, began uncontrollably sobbing due to the accidental death of this woman's husband. Seeing this, the sad widow gave the man a big hug as they cried together. The man explained that he was wealthy and would pay the wife a substantial sum to not inform the authorities that the accident was his fault, believing that he would be imprisoned for reckless driving. The authorities were contacted and responded. The amount of money that the woman was offered, she couldn't resist. It was more money than she would ever see in her life. So the woman aided the driver by stating that the accidental death of her husband was not his fault. Her exact words to the authorities was not stated, but you can infer that the woman must have told the authorities that her husband must not have been paying attention, which caused his own death. The widow and the man provided each other's information and kept in touch with one another. The driver would occasionally stop by her home and help in any way he could. Along with the offer of money, the man promised to help her find a job and also a better place to live. The man was introduced to her daughter, and the three of them would occasionally meet up together as good friends and go out to dinner or what have you. One day, the man notified the woman to meet up with him so she could be introduced to a friend of his that had a job opening. The woman quickly changed her clothes and hurried to the location that the friend specified. The driver waited for her over an hour, but she never arrived. The entire trip should have only taken a few minutes from her home, and this is what he mentioned to the authorities when they arrived. A search was done in the area with negative results. The woman had vanished without a trace, leaving her young child behind. The authorities believe that the woman was also abducted, but without any evidence, the case remained cold. Over the next year, 4 additional people vanished without a trace, which left the police scrutinized by the community and local politicians for the terrible lack of progress. The authorities received a break, which was the last female murder victim. She was last seen with a man by the name of Gibaldi Handiani. He was eventually located and brought in for questioning. Gibaldi gave a jaw-dropping testimonial that explains the deaths of multiple victims. Gibaldi confessed to 7 murders in total. His first murder was the taxicab driver who made fun of him. After realizing how easy it is to murder and get away with it, he chose to incorporate killing people who opposed him as a way of life. Next, he admitted to killing his pregnant fiancée Yenny just to get rid of their baby. Then he killed the widow so he didn't have to pay her for recklessly killing her husband in the car accident. Then afterwards, he killed his ex-wife because he believed that she cheated on him. Gibaldi then killed 2 business associates over a money dispute. The last victim was a woman he was dating that allegedly didn't take their relationship serious enough. This annoyed Gibaldi very much so, he persuaded her to go with him to an isolated location, which is where he executed her. This is how he was ultimately captured by the authorities. Gibaldi confessed to executing all of his victims by forcing them to look at him as he shot each one of them in their face several times. He was ultimately tried, found guilty, and sentenced to death. If you enjoy more stories such as these, click on one of the suggested videos above. God bless and stay safe.